So I saw in the paper that the Charlotte County group had 3 openings that they are
Yes,
advertising
they
for.
finally advertised for them. We
Yeah.
haven't been able to have a quorum since March.
Which group is this?
Wow.
The-
Historical Advisory Committee,
For the county.
Wow.
there was talk of whether the
Mitch,
committee
I
was
have a quick
even viable
question.
anymore,
Is
because
this
it's
a
been so
new
long since
word
we've
that I don't know
been able
about,
to
or
make
is that
a quorum.
misspelling?
Wow. Why?
It is a misspelling.
Several people resigned.
What was hard about getting people to join it?
Certain,
So they're ready with the,
Okay.
with the-
I can explain later.
so hopefully. And just as a quick reminder, if you make a motion or have another action that you take, please state your name for the record. So
so
that
they
they can,
know.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Since they're not here, they can't see who's saying what necessarily.
Okay. I'm calling this meeting of the Historic Preservation Advisory Board to order on September 24th, 2020, 9:08 a.m. as we were having to get caught up on technical feeds. All, please be sure your cell phones are muted, which I started to do and did not do myself. And roll call. Who's going?
So, they didn't give me a roll call form. I think all members are present and accounted for. Martha Beretta is on the
Julie's not here.
phone. Oh, so Julie Price is absent, sorry. So, we'll note that for the record. Although she's not here, we have Andrea here as an alternate, so you can pop up there, and then we'll have a full house. Excellent, thank you.
Sorry, did you take roll call already?
We were just going through that, but yes, if you want to do it formally, that will be good.
Okay, Julie Price, Michael Wooster,
Here.
Valerie Colbert,
Here.
Donna Peterman,
Here.
Sushila Shireen,
Yeah.
Martha Beretta,
Here.
Brad Gamblin,
Here?
and Adrian Andrea. Okay.
All right. So you're on.
All right, let's see, agenda. Next scheduled meeting will be October 22nd, 2020. Any citizens' comments on agenda items only today? And then we have the minutes from last meeting, and someone would like to,
Move approval.
Second,
and do I hear a second?
second.
Second.
Okay, make sure to state your names when
State your
you
name,
first and second motions.
Oh, Valerie Colbert,
Martha Beretta.
second. Oh,
Thank you,
Brenda
Valerie.
did too.
And Donna?
Yes, I moved
And
it.
all in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. New business.
New business. Okay, so we have, first off is certificate of appropriateness, CA 21-2020 for 117 West Marion Avenue. The certificate of appropriateness is for signage. This is a commercial vernacular structure, 3-tenant building with its primary frontage on Marion Avenue. The business is in the alley, the pedestrian alleyway that connects Marion to Harold Court. I wanted to say Harvey, sorry. The signage consists of individual letters, facade sign adhered to the facade. This will be visible from across vacant lot and parking lot from West Marion Avenue, and of course visible in the alleyway. The signage is compliant with the City of Punta Gorda regulations for signs, and staff does recommend approval. This item is signage does require board action. Any questions or concerns?
Hearing none, I guess we need a motion to approve.
Mike Booster, I move to approve.
Second? I second it.
Okay, Donna, thank you. All in favor of approving the certificate of appropriateness, please signify by aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
The next item under new business is CA 2220. This is certificate of appropriateness for 314 Gill Street. This is for a simple re-roofing of the structure. They're replacing existing asphalt shingles with architectural grade 3 tab asphalt shingles. City staff did approve the certificate of appropriateness for this re-roof, as it would have no adverse impact on the structure or district. If you have any questions or concerns, I'm more than happy to answer.
Any questions from the board?
No.
All right. Accept a motion?
Oh, we don't need a motion on this. This is.
We don't.
Yeah, information only.
Oh, it does
Apologize.
say info only. Thank
Yes.
you. Actually, this roof probably looked better than the previous one. I would-
Yes.
All right. Then moving on, unfinished business, County Centennial. Subcommittee reports. Do we have any reports? At one point, there was some discussion, or at least I volunteered to follow up with the possibility of perhaps there being a mural that would depict something somehow to do with the county and the city being involved in the history and be located in Punta Gorda. Mural Society, have talked to them, did not reject the idea, but thought it would require further consideration. The big problem is where and how, and they also restrict the location. One thought maybe would have been out at the airport, as that could have been appropriate, but generally the Mural Society prefers to stay within the legal confines of the city of Punta Gorda. But nothing has been rejected, but nothing is being pursued particularly at this point. Anyone have comments about that perhaps idea of there being a mural? And we
Well, the
don't know
Mural
what-
Society is already working on the airfield,
Yeah, I know they are.
so they've got that one. And maybe they're doing something at the boat club, but, and also, for them to take it up, that would be another fundraising effort.
That's what I heard, yeah.
Yeah, so they're not, I mean, that's what they have to do, so they would expect.
I'd expect the fundraising, if
Yes.
someone comes with the money, then that changes it, but I don't see that really happening unless the county would be interested.
And Brad, did you have any concept of what would be on the mural at all? Has you or your committee discussed anything like that?
The answer is, at this point, no. The history of the two, of course, of Punta Gorda, or Tribune, are intertwined with the county, but the county didn't exist for many decades, or for many years until the county came into existence as we know it today. So the answer to that question was no. It was thrown out there as a concept and an idea. There are some problems with even, I understand, finding a spot at the airport with the new business and so on, all the hopefully be able to put up a mural someday in the new general aviation area might be considered, but that's years away too. So the answer is really, don't think so, but if somebody has funding and is really interested, Kelly said they'd, listen. And I see this one's not going very far. Any suggestions or comments other than Donna? Thank you.
Well, again, the airport, I mean, technically isn't it's the county.
Right.
So it's not us, per se. It would be great if there were a spot. I think it'd be ideal if it was near the historic courthouse, which would make sense, because we are the county seat.
Right.
But I can't think of a location off the top of my head which would be available for that. But from my standpoint, that's where I think it was someplace where there's context for what it is. And again, it's a county celebration, but we are the county seat.
Yeah. Good point. Any other comments?
If the Mural Society is not 100% behind it, because between the concept and the execution, there are a huge number of steps, the least of which is, of course, or the most of which is, of course, fundraising, so to get that accomplished. It sounds to me like the Mural Society has got a lot on their plate at the moment. I think in the future, this would be a viable project. I'm not quite sure. Were you thinking of something to be ready by 2021, or what was the idea?
There was really no idea, other than at the last meeting, we discussed the possibility of contacting the Mural Society, and I volunteered to do so, and I have done so.
Okay. Thank you.
And it seems like, for all the reasons that have been pointed out, just not one of those fits that hit you in the face right away is, wow, what a great idea. It's just something we should have looked at. And who knows, someday maybe there will be when they put in this general aviation terminal, which I think is going to be coming. Well, it's happening, it will happen. Anyhow, moving on. Historical markers, Fisherman Village, Harbor Walk, Tribune Estate Settlement, NPG Boat Club.
So that's actually a remnant from the last meeting, and I apologize for that. But I did receive from Patty Allen this photograph, and I'm sorry I can't turn it around. This computer's not cooperating with me this morning. They have installed one historic marker along the Harbor Walk at Fisherman's Village. I have not seen this in person, but judged on based on the photograph, it seems to be over by the Marina Basin on the parking lot side, not the building side. And it talks about the history of the King Street Railroad dock, which is approximately where the US 41 northbound bridge is now, more or less. So it talks about the history of that. And the actual marker itself appears to be bronze, and this photograph is actually integrated into that bronze print. Like I said, I haven't seen it in person, so I'm not quite sure how it's constructed. But
So Mitchell, a point of clarification. Since this is the Historic Preservation Advisory Board, should we have seen this before it was installed?
generally speaking, yeah. Patty Allen said that they were working with the Historic Archive folks.
Well, the History Center.
Yeah, the History Center.
But
and
in talking to them,
happened,
yeah, Teresa, who who's in charge of it, I mean, Mirtha made the comment to me that she thought this board should be approving historic markers. So before they do the next one, I mean, can we point that out?
Yeah, we can certainly point that out. It was a bit of a surprise to me that they just did it. They said they were working on it, you know, working with what they were going to do, and then she sent me this photograph. It was at the end of August, so.
This is Martha. Is it possible that we might even see a photograph of that?
Yeah, I can certainly email it to you. I'm showing that now on the screen here.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm raising it because they have another one to, to create. We've got the Trebu settlement ones, which again, I would guess the History Center will be involved with. And then whatever happens at the boat club. I mean, I think if this is what we're supposed to be doing, then we need to tell people that, beyond, signs on storefronts, I would think historic markers should be definitely part of the purview.
And is this marker actually on their property? I assume it is?
Yes, yes. Yeah, they own all that property there. So,
I mean, it's a courtesy, if anything.
right, it is definitely a courtesy from a like regulatory perspective, because it can't be seen from a right of way. It's not regulated as a sign. There was no formal approval or permitting process for staff to capture this or require it to be, go through any approval process.
Could it be that they just didn't know that they had to, as a matter of courtesy, inform us or the History Center? I'd like to be kind and think that they just didn't know.
Like I said, there's no formal process.
No.
So, we couldn't tell them, hey, you need to go do this. I'm not here to throw anyone under the bus.
Should we consider looking at a process to bring back to the board here for
Yes.
advisory board?
Certainly, that would require a change in the existing land development regulations or some other appropriate article of the city code of ordinances. Because currently, there's nothing.
Can we do a recommended process without going through code of ordinances?
Certainly that could be undertaken.
Well, I mean, already, and I guess just because they want to be, good citizens, the Mural Society always shows us their designs before they're implemented.
Right.
And this group has had comments on designs in the past, which they've responded to.
Right.
So I don't see any reason why this marker shouldn't be part of that as well.
Agreed.
I mean, given the name of this group. And I think we have to go back and look at what our bylaws or whatever surrounding what activities. I mean, we've already said that we are the group that before you make a donation to the city, that we get to review that. So to me, this looks like sort of the same thing, that it should be there. Because you could have people just deciding, I'm just going to put up a marker, somewhere and declare it, historic. I just feel like it's a miss. Not trying to impede people's desire to celebrate their locations, but at the same time, I think we have to have some standards, or what are we doing?
Standards and coordination.
Yeah.
And I
From-
think that there needs to be a benefit for them. We have to put it out, like, it benefits you to come through us. We have to think about what the benefit for them is, otherwise people aren't gonna be. But if if it would seem like, oh, this has been approved by this and this makes it more valid by the board, it would be a benefit to them.
Well, and not to call out an organization with which I'm affiliated, but for example, the train depot, a sign was recently installed, commemorating, the Jim Crow era, or trying to explain the context
Right.
for something that's on the site, which was installed and didn't come here first. Which I asked one of the people associated with that to talk to Mitchell about, shouldn't this have gone through the process? Just like, again, we're doing these commercial signs, so why aren't we doing historic?
I agree. I think that we have to approach these groups and say, like, it's a benefit to you to have us approve it, because then we can, you know, it looks
This is
more
Martha.
official.
There's
or
a
it
sign
looks
that
like worthwhile
they are
to you.
putting up. Remember, we had all the discussion about the size of the sign, you know, what the architecture of it would be. Does this follow all the guidelines that we established very early on?
No, it does not. And like I said, city staff only heard about the sign being proposed, and then we saw a picture of the sign installed. So, yeah,
I think that, you know, the comment was made that we should, as the Historical Preservation Advisory Board, because we have been involved in this process, we should have some guidelines by which if markers are going to be placed in the city, that they should come through us, that we should have some comment on the marker to make sure that they meet the guidelines that we set up. I think this was almost last year when we set up those guidelines. We went through all of those discussions in our meetings.
yeah.
I thought we had the discussions in the context of the project we were trying to implement, but it wasn't about markers generally.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the difference. I mean, these are independent initiatives that there's a lack of appreciation that maybe they should have shared,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
before installation.
I think, again, it goes back to we have separate groups working on history and that are interested in history. And if it's on private property and it's not a commercial message sign, the city has no regulatory authority to say yes, no, or maybe so to it. So from a staff perspective, we're not involved, which is unfortunate, but that's just the reality.
Can I put a sign in my front yard that's historic, call it historic, and
Based on this, yeah.
As long as your sign does not carry a commercial message and is not regulated as a commercial message, then yes, because it's exercising your First Amendment rights.
But that's kind of my point, like, if we can sort of sell to these groups, like, okay, you can put anything you want out there, but if it's backed by the historic preservation, it looks more official, it looks, you know, if we can make some sort of, you know, motivate them in some way, because now if we just put it out, here are the rules, they feel like, oh, well, why should we do this? You know, you have to give them a reason.
Well, again, what we're trying to do is have a consistent historic district for promotion. So
I
that makes
100%
100% sense.
Right, I just think they don't know it. Like, I think instead of saying you need our approval, maybe we pitch it more like, instead of needing our approval, we're trying to get these groups together, and we're trying to make it a cohesive thing that we're all doing together instead of we're the ones
Well,
regulating.
again, too, I think the way to do that would be to follow up on Brad's suggestion and take a look at whatever it's, what are we formed under? Do we have bylaws, right?
Yes.
We need to look at our bylaws and see if we need to amend the bylaws. And again, I think our rationale is, again, about having a cohesive historic district.
100%, I
And
agree.
but I think if we can make that change, that'll be more visible.
Right.
Because if we can make the change, then we can share it with all of the groups that are involved.
Right,
in this.
and I just think we need to share it in a way that's like, this is here to help you, not, you
Well,
know.
yeah, exactly. Again, I think the cohesiveness of the look and feel of what goes on is important. So I really think we should pursue the bylaw.
well, and this actually comes under, look, I'll read it right here, our values: maintain a culture of community engagement, teamwork, partnerships, transparencies, respect, customer service, and stewardship. That's number one under our values of the city of Concord, of which this board is under those values. And this one kind of slipped in, but it's also, I did have the pleasure of having 2 markers installed on private property prior to coming down to Punta Gorda, and they were the markers that sit on a single pedestal, and they're the big aluminum ones with the raised print on them like we have out front here, and hidden behind the big bushes. But even though that was in the city of Dayton, we had to get approval because it was visible from the street. That seemed to be kind of one of the factors there that they considered important. If you had a sign or a historical marker or whatever from the street, they didn't approve or disapprove the content as much as they would approve whether you could put the sign there or not under certain criteria they had.
One of the things we could do or offer to the people to make it a benefit to them is have all of the signs be uniform and have a Punta Gorda, Florida logo on it, and all of them be the same size, same color as the county does. All of the markers that go in look similar. Sometimes they're bigger because they have more verbiage on them, but they all have the county logo on them. Let's look for something like that where we can make the markers uniform.
Right.
And be part of a uniform program, and maybe something we could advertise in flyers or whatnot for the city of, here are our historical markers in our historical areas, a historical walk, something to bring it together and make it one thing instead of individual markers that look totally different all over the city, because I could see where we would have 50 markers that are going to look different on everybody's front yards.
Yeah, and I don't think the problem is there is no benefit. I think that's obvious to all of us, but I think these groups, obviously, it's not obvious to them to see the benefit of coming to us.
Truly.
So that, to me, shows to them, I think we just need to get better at showing them the benefit for them of coming to us.
This says that they worked with the Punta Gorda History Center on this. I mean, does the Punta Gorda History Center has a standard for signs that, is there some coordination we should be doing with them to make sure?
I don't know that that's the case. I'll just go back to what Teresa Murtha said to me, is that she really felt that this group should be the group that, vets all historic markers. And so she said that, she worked with Fisherman's Village, and they didn't share it. I mean, that's what sort of the disconnect for me is.
And I think I agree, if I may, with what Donna is saying, but whatever steps we decide to take, whatever we do or say must be couched in very careful language. And I agree with what you said as well, Adrian, that it must be portrayed as a mutual benefit to this group and us. But somehow it has to be conveyed to them that we need to be in the picture. See, the last thing we want is to ruffle any kind of feathers.
That's true.
Because from years of experience, I know it takes very little to ruffle feathers, and then we get launched into a useless discussion.
Well, I want to come back to this, that they worked with the History Center. I mean, is that something that other organizations do, or
Well, the History Center has archives, so that's where they would have gone
for the information?
information.
Not for the design?
Yes,
Well, we're
they had
cons-
they had a designer work on this. The History
Okay.
Center didn't design
What
it.
we're concerned about is the look of it and how it's consistent with everything else in the town. So saying they work with them on the facts is great, but we sure would like them working with us if we can make that.
If it's coordinated in design, it is far more effective
Yes,
than to have a coordinated, oh, there's another marker, let's go see what it says,
right.
than having 15 different types of markers out there. They blend
Couldn't
away.
agree more.
So, what should we do? Mitchell, will you have some suggestions? In your spare time.
Yes, in my spare time. So we can take a look at this as staff and see what we can propose or not. We need to look at the bylaws and see if there's anything that needs to be changed in there, and then take a look at our draft proposal for the sign regulation. When it comes to regulating signs, we're wrapped around the axle with the First Amendment issues, so we have to be very neutral on that, so that's kind of like off the table. There needs to be some other way to process this. So looking at what other municipalities have done is probably a good idea. In terms of like having an official branded, this is the official City of Punta Gorda historic marker. If you come to us, that's the stick. What's the carrot? And the carrot probably needs to be some sort of cost share. Obviously, Fisherman's Village paid for that sign out of their own pocket. And I know if I was paying for it out of my own pocket, I wouldn't want any of you telling me how it looked.
But you might like our endorsement.
Maybe.
Maybe it's
You know-
true,
you know, I
absolutely
mean-
right.
If it's coming out of my pocket, not out of the public coffer or anything else, why do I need to get approval from anybody else? It's mine. I mean, that's just human nature right there, so,
Could you tell me again where this is located? I got confused. Is it down by Fisherman's Village?
it's on the Fisherman's Village property. As I said, I have not physically gone to look at it. I try and
All
avoid
right. I'll stop by
public
and look at it.
paces right now, so,
I wanted to walk down there and see it.
yeah. Yeah, it is, I mean, based on the photograph, it would not be visible from any public portion of the city, so no public right-of-way or public park. So,
Also, I find I'm a little bit intrigued by the sign itself, which actually looks fairly nice, and it's all bronze.
it appears to be
glass.
all bronze.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, knowing what bronze plaques cost, that was not cheap. It's a well-made piece. The content actually was curious to me because, of course, the King Street dock was over here, and Fisherman's Village is over there. So I'm not
That's what
quite
was confusing me.
sure there's much contextual value to that little bit of history, which concerns me. But again, that's going into, something beyond what a municipality can regulate as far as signage. That has to be in the realm of some sort of cooperative effort about what the message is for historic markers in their place.
well, we could certainly couch our assistance in assisting people in accuracy of what they're putting out there without actually regulating them. We would be offer to assist and help.
Yeah. So, I know I worked with the county back in the day when we put some joint markers around the city, and there was a very definitive process. Does the county actually have any restriction or prohibition against anybody putting up their own historic marker?
I do
saying
not
that-
know the answer to that right this minute. I'd have to go research, but I could find out, because I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah.
At the county level, as far as I know, all requests for historical markers went through the Historical Advisory Committee. I don't know if there was any other committees that did it, or what the rules were for how to get there, I know that all the signs were the same size, had the county logo and the year on the bottom, and the county commissioners' names, that kind of thing. But as far as the HAC committee voted on which ones were historical and viable, and we also did quite a bit of research to decide what to put on them, but we also took other people's research when they came to the meeting and offered it.
Right.
As far as the rules to getting that far, I am not sure.
Yeah.
I would have to do some research and let you know.
Yeah, I think the content was vetted, and there was a process. But
Yes.
of course, the county has a historian on staff.
Yes, there was a county historian.
So that's
still
expertise
have
that we
one, though?
don't have as a
They don't have one
municipality.
anymore, do they?
Yes, they do. I cannot remember her name. She was brand new at our last meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
I honestly cannot remember her name right this very second. But yes, we had the county historian and library services also that were involved. And members of the public came to the meetings and said, I have an idea for a historical marker. How do we do this process? And the county had funding for 3 markers a year, but other people came in and offered donations if they wanted a marker put in X place and it was something near and dear to their heart. Or different organizations, historical organizations and 501c3s also made donations to have markers put in, but it all went through the Historical Advisory Committee. But I don't really know the rules before it got to the Historical Advisory Committee.
So you really were a regulatory body then? Did you regulate it?
Yeah, well, what went on them,
Everything is and the same size. And
Right, right. And we got them all from the same company. We ordered them from Sewell. And I assume we were the last people they talked to for the verbiage on them. I honestly don't know the answer to that if it got changed after we got done, because a lot of them, we did the applications and we sent the forms to Sewell. I've actually done that, so we were deciding what went on them. But the rules as to why and how we did that in a regulatory way, I'm not sure.
But in theory, somebody in the county could, if they had a private residence.
Yes.
Just put a historical marker on their property and,
No, we didn't put anything up on private residences.
no, not through you, but
Yeah.
if they didn't go through you.
I honestly don't know the answer to that, whether the county allows that or doesn't allow that, or whether it's addressed.
Because it is an interesting First Amendment.
Right.
Issue, you can't,
We put them all on public land when I was on the 4 years that I was on it. And you're right, we never put one on private land. So I don't know if there were separate rules for private land or any rules for private land, or whether it was even addressed.
Do you have an answer to that, Mitchell?
From the city staff perspective, there's no way for us to regulate a sign that's not carrying a commercial message and can't be seen from a public right-of-way. So in both examples that have been given here, Fisherman's Village marker and at the train depot, neither of those signs is visible from a public right-of-way. We have no way to regulate them. Period.
And everything we were doing was far more public. There was, people came with ideas for public land that they liked the idea of putting a marker up, but we always put it in a public place.
Yeah.
If we pursue some kind of approval or control over this, does that mean we have to put out a set of standards? We have to create that? We don't.
That's essentially what the county has done. I mean, they have a very definitive program that you can tap into, and, you know, if it's one of those 3 or 4, I think at one point they were funding like 5 a year, then you would receive funding, so you wouldn't have to pay for anything, you're just bringing them a good idea. So that's like a totally different structure than what we're talking about here. In terms of, as far as I know, there's no money unless this board says, hey, city council, we need to do this so that we have some structure going into the future.
But if we go back to Fisherman's Village, as I recall, the reason they even did this marker and are doing the second one is because it was part of the sales agreement, right?
Correct.
So
But
it was,
the
it,
act-
it was in the sales document.
so then when they made the sales document, they should have put in there, and these markers should be approved.
Well, and that was the city's agreement with Fisherman's Village,
I
right?
mean,
So the actual terms of the agreement just mention that the owner, the private property owner, Fishville LLC or whatever they're called, and it names the Punta Gorda History Center, or Punta Gorda Historic Archive at that point in time is what they were branded. It does not mention the city in that line, so we have no, it's like we put these two bodies together and then we walked away
Right, I mean, I just
in the
think
terms of the agreement. So,
it's too late in that
Yeah.
sense. But, I mean,
Oh.
going forward, if we want people to do that, I think we have to make it worth their while, like, we have to do something.
Oh, I think you'd have a hard time telling Fisherman's Village they wouldn't be able to put a sign on their property that no one's going to see and isn't
Right,
what you
that's what I'm
said,
saying,
doesn't
like-
have any
But I don't
advertising
think that's what
value.
we're saying at all. I think we're just saying that again, if the mission is historic preservation, then we ought to have some interest in what people are doing to commemorate the history. And right now, we have none.
Correct, I agree.
And the word permission, I think, could serve as a red rag to a bull. Can we couch it differently, as you said, something
Yeah,
of
I think
mutual
we're gonna have
benefit?
trouble if we say, oh, we get to regulate what.
No, I
sign-
don't, but I don't think that's what I'm talking about.
No, no,
I'm
no,
talking
I-
about, just as the Mural Society already does.
Yes.
They come and share the concept before they execute
Because
it.
obviously the Mural Society, and we should almost ask them, what benefit do you see of this? And then we should use that benefit. Like
Well, the
whatever-
benefit is that the city's endorsed their
Right,
design,
so
which
they-
helps in their fundraising, I'm
Yeah, they
sure.
feel like
Also-
that's good, so we should be promoting. Like, I don't think we're gonna change the rules here, but I think we could use that to promote people to do that, you know?
But they're not going to do it if we don't put it in, I believe, into the bylaws. I mean, how are we going to just all of a sudden talk to them about, oh, if you put up a marker, you really should show it to us without something that
Is it in
says.
the bylaws about the mural society?
No, but they just do it.
Out of the kindness of their heart and out of
Yeah, so-
respect.
Right, so I feel
That-
like
that-
they see some sort of benefit, and I feel like our focus should be, I feel like our path of least resistance basically is to try to push that benefit so people see that more. I think the issue here is more that people aren't seeing the benefit of.
Well, I think also the issue is that they don't recognize that we do anything that, seriously,
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
as a group.
But then we could offer advice, consultation, and maybe even assistance, because we
Exactly,
theoretically do
but
more
I don't-
markers than they do, one or two.
But
Exactly.
I still think it requires setting guidelines. If we want to be involved with this, we have to say, well, even if we can't enforce them, we would like to see the guidelines, plaques in the future should look something like this, or some kind of a standard for it. Otherwise, we don't really have much,
Well,
position.
then you could go so far as to say, okay, well, what about a museum? What do we regulate the signs, plaques around the outside of a museum, or a garden, like Selby Gardens? You go there and they have all kinds of plaques. So there are a lot of questions to it, but I think what we have found here is an issue has been brought up because this actually very nice looking sign, maybe not quite historically correct, has been put up. And so, as a Historic Preservation Advisory Board, I think we are under some obligation to assist, let's say,
I agree.
and perhaps go from there on that. And I think possibly it was done out of ignorance. They know that they have an obligation under their sale contract, which people didn't think about all of the ramifications.
Well, again, in this particular case, I had a meeting with the History Center and Fisherman's Village, talking about the designs they were going to pursue, and I think because of that, and because they thought we were going to proceed with our marker project, which has finally got them off the dime to execute, their design, which is why I'm a little surprised that it's already done and we never saw anything. I mean, so it's not like they didn't know that we were interested.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the point to me, is like, but they didn't care.
Right.
And that's the hard part. We have to take that as
I think
a message almost, as saying like, they didn't see the benefit of coming to us, and that's an issue. But I don't think we can force them to see the benefit. We have to show them. Like, the Mural Society is a great example, because I feel like they see some benefit of doing this, and we should figure out how to exploit that. Whatever they feel, we should
Well,
be
The Mural
focusing on
Society,
it.
by doing this, they get the support of the city. They get our support,
Right.
And they go to city council.
they
Yeah.
get city council, and so when it comes time to publicize the finishing of the library mural, everybody's on board. In other words, this is a plus for the city's looked at it,
Yeah, I see the
It's-
benefit.
I do too.
It's not that I don't see it, I just am saying we should recognize that other people aren't seeing
well,
it as
and
well.
also, this looks a little bit like, well, we gotta do it, let's just go get it done, here, you take care of this,
Right, I agree with that.
and here's your budget. And, that's done. Sometimes you almost have the attitude, which is, I think, very wrong, that it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. And this is just, get her done. It's part of our
Right.
sales contract, get her done.
Could we
So-
not have said at the informal meeting, well, we'll expect to see, or, no, we'll expect. It has to be very carefully worded. We'll see your finished draft at our next board meeting, or something like that. And that'll give them the idea that they really need to come through us.
Maybe ask them to bring design specs. Out of courtesy, could you please show the committee the design before you implement it?
I would say something like, we'd love to help you
Yeah.
with the history. We'd love to help you with, we'd love to make this a promotional opportunity for you. We'd love to make these signs more than they are. You think of them as just checking off a box, but they're a big deal to us, so we'd love to help you with information, help you with design, help you. Like, that would be my way of going about it.
Good old benefits.
I suspect if they have multiple ones to do, the die is already cast, is a small pun, but that they already have a plan for the other ones too.
Probably, but I'm just saying in the future,
Well,
that's the way I would pitch
Whether they
that.
have a plan for the other ones or not, we're learning right now too. So.
Right, exactly.
And it wouldn't hurt to contact them, or maybe it would, or maybe they don't care. I don't know.
I don't know.
So just for some historical context, the Mural Society was formed in, I believe, 1987, which was around the time that there was a joint historic preservation revitalization committee. That committee was formed more or less in the run-up to the centennial of the city. And eventually, the Revitalization Committee and Historic Preservation split right about the time that they were started working on the Community Redevelopment Agency. So the Mural Society came to that joint board, and it just became a tradition. There's nothing... It's really a courtesy. It's a tradition built on courtesy. There's no regulatory authority that the city has. The city, by approving the mural or consenting to the mural, it isn't saying anything about the content of it or the location of it because it's art. So it's really an interesting process that's just not, I mean, there's no regulatory or there's no value add beyond the fact that it's a tradition. So I don't know how you build a tradition from scratch, I guess, is the
Okay, going back,
thing that I struggle with.
okay, going back to the train station, isn't the train station on the National Registry?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so if it's on the National Registry and somebody wants to put a sign up on it,
Yes.
that doesn't give us any more leverage? I mean, I know
If
that die has been cast too, but if you think about it, if it's a National Registry property,
So if it's visible from the public right of way and it carries a commercial message, then we have regulatory authority. If it does not carry a commercial message, if it does not say like antique sold here or whatever, eat at Joe's, we have no regulatory authority over that sign. I mean, we can regulate size so that it's not unreasonable, but the content of the message,
okay, so how about this? Since anyone who's developing a marker is likely to work with the History Center because they are the archives people. So what if we had Teresa come to our next meeting and let's talk about this on a going forward basis? How can we better coordinate with the History Center,
That's a good idea.
on
Yeah, I
requests
think
for
that would be
markers?
great.
That's a great idea.
Because I mean, again, she was proactive with me. She told me about the boat club wanting to do a marker.
right.
And they've already, I guess, contacted her. She's the one working with Fisherman's Village. She's likely to be involved in any subsequent requests. So why don't we start with that? And just have a conversation.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
We can certainly invite her
Yeah,
to the
because we
next
don't
meeting.
have that expertise. I mean, that's what they do. They manage the information. They are going to be the sourcing point. They're the sourcing point for the Mural Society, too.
And maybe she sees an opportunity because all these groups are coming to her. Maybe she sees either a marketing opportunity or something that they're missing that we could fill a void for them, even if it's not financial. I mean, that's ideal, but that's not realistic always. But if there's something they're missing, like a cohesive marketing, you know, like she said, aspect to it or something, making their signs bigger than they are, maybe we could help them with that, and I think that would serve everyone.
Well, again, I think she's the person to start with, though.
Yeah, no,
If
I
you
think
want
that would be
awareness.
great, because she talks to them, I think she knows I think she would be great.
She could also suggest that the group could come to us.
Exactly.
Right, like she has the
If they're coming to
in, so-
them, and if you can make it part of the process, you should talk to the board also. or
Yeah,
the committee,
absolutely.
And I believe that's what she thinks should happen,
As a minimum.
but we haven't made that connection formally.
Right,
And we've learned, this has been a learning experience. And maybe we also ought to put out a nice invitation to Fisherman's Village to come and tell us about their marker, even if it's afterwards.
Well, I think I suggested that a meeting or so ago that we have
Yeah,
them attend, and just, so maybe Kathy Burnham can come and talk to us about that particular marker, and then share what's planned for the next one.
great.
yeah.
So maybe, Mitchell, could we do that for the next meeting? If we've got them both here?
Yeah, because then they can see us more, I mean, it's just a connection, I think that's great.
Shows that we're even interested, so.
That's what I'm saying, like, I wonder if, even though you go, if they, you know, and all that they're doing are really seeing, like, all that could be done, you know what I mean? And I think if we can show them that, that's great.
I mean, it was clearly something that they wanted to get done because they were late doing it. Okay?
Right.
That was the feeling, and I'm sure they felt like, okay, you were there, Teresa was there, we had our
Yeah,
conversation.
check that off, but
Right.
we can say, hey, look,
I mean, they talked broadly about concept, but I cannot tell you that I remember
yeah, like,
what it was.
if we can
Because
say.
it wasn't down to the copy phase.
Right. If we
So.
can say this could be even bigger for you, this isn't just a check mark, this is where you make yourself known as a historic, you know, something, this could.
And I have to think that if and when the Trebu family ever does something or sends you something, Mitchell, that they will have talked to the History Center because of the Bucky McQueen connection. So they'll be involved in that too, so we might as well.
Right.
Well, and
Try to
we
get
are
in
an
front of it.
advisory board, not just to the city, but council, but we're also an advisory board to the constituents, is one way of looking at it.
Public.
Yeah, I mean, we should be looking at how we can serve them as much as how they can serve us, you know, how they can.
Exactly.
It seems to me that Teresa is the person now to make contact with, and she can get the ball rolling.
I'm sorry, Shashila, I can't hear you.
It seems to me, oh, these masks are.
Right.
If you can actually speak into the microphone.
Can you talk into the microphone? The
Oh,
microphone's here.
sorry, yeah. It seems to me that Teresa is the person that we should be contacting, and that's an excellent idea, Donna, that you suggested.
Well, that was the first suggestion, let's have Teresa come, because that's the most direct. It's a good time to catch up on what they're doing anyway,
That's a nice
Yes.
way to open the door.
Yeah, no, I
exactly.
think that would be great.
and then we can have a conversation about how we can better partner
Right.
going forward.
How can we better partner with you to make this program work better?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Would it be a good idea to ask Kathy Burnham in at the same time as well, or?
Certainly, we can make the invitation to anyone.
I think they'd come, I mean, there's,
Yes.
Yeah, why not? Other comments?
no, there's a good discussion.
Very good discussion. Thank you all. So we discussed Fisherman's Village.
Yep.
Do you have any comments about the Trevue Estate Settlement, PG Boat Club? Anything? No.
No, not at this time.
Any staff comments, sir?
So the consultants that are working on the update to the comprehensive plan, one of the elements is, of course, the historical element. We anticipate that we'll be publishing the first draft of that on the website a week from Monday. So be on the lookout before your next meeting. It'll be on there'll be some information about it in the weekly highlights report. But we can certainly send that directly to the board members when that becomes available. If you have any questions or concerns on that, recommendations in there include revising the historic districts, establishing a local register based on all the work that this board did several years ago. So it's all positive in that light in terms of what goes into the policies of the comprehensive plan.
Any committee board further comments? No?
Oh, one more question. Mitchell, when do you anticipate having the city's recommendation on how to regulate parking in the historic area?
So we are.
This is overnight parking.
Yes. So we are working with the Information Technology Department to identify possible software vendors for such a program so that we can limit the amount of staff time and hopefully limit the cost. We've had 2 meetings so far. I believe we've got another 2 scheduled. We want to have some idea of ballpark costs before we start the next step. But as far as the actual regulatory structure, proposed ordinance change, we're close, but we don't want to move that until we know, we have all the answers for city council regarding costs of such a program.
So not for a while.
I would anticipate that we're looking at November, December, possibly December, January, based on our ability to get meetings with these software providers. The 2 that we've talked to so far actually do parking permits for like private property owners, like an apartment complex or a resort. So we're outside of the box for them. Hopefully a couple of the other contractors that we've got lined up have dealt with municipalities, so we'll have a better idea. Because obviously we don't want to spend money on customizing somebody else's proprietary product.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other? And seeing as there are no citizens in the audience at the moment, we'll skip citizens' comments. There being, as far as I can see, nothing else to come before our advisory board. Therefore, we adjourn.
Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to point, this has nothing to do with the board, I just wanted to point out, this is the first time that I have seen, and this 2 meeting, that I've seen this wonderful thing. And I noticed immediately on page 3 that the